Hello, my name is Jose Arrieta, and I'm the Small Business Executive at the Department of the Treasury. And before we get started, I'd like to thank all the folks from industry and government who have signed up for our event and are going to join us for the educational seminar today. And we very much appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the folks from the Federal Acquisition Institute and from the Office of Federal Procurement Policy who have given us an opportunity to actually share some of the things we're working on with you. Today, we're trying to address a major challenge that we see on the horizon for the federal acquisition workforce and the acquisition workforce within industry. 30% of the acquisition workforce within industry and 30% of the acquisition workforce within the federal government has less than 5 years left before and within 5 years' time, they will probably retire. 30% of the acquisition workforce within industry and government has less than 5 years of experience. So that's a significant challenge. We need to figure out a way to train our acquisition workforce to be smarter, faster, both in industry and government. The federal government spends over $500 billion a year, and the bulk of that spending is done by people. And we have to figure out a way to develop those individuals so that they can holistically understand the function of acquisition to be able to engage in this process for the future, and at a much earlier age than those that came before them. Today, what we are going to do is share with you a methodology that we believe can train people to be smarter, faster. And we're going to do it within a specific function of the federal acquisition workforce. We're going to talk specifically about debriefings. Now, if you think about work in the federal government, whether you're in industry or whether you're within government, there are really four intersecting and conflicting priorities that you have to manage in order to be a successful acquisition professional. And many times those priorities do not help one another. There's procurement law, there's public policy, there's the agency's mission, and there's industry. If you think about training programs historically, training programs focus specifically on Con 100 or specifically on learning capture management and business development. However, there's not many training programs that focus specifically on holistically developing an individual with those four priorities in mind. And if you want to be a leader in our function, you need to have that type of experience. Furthermore, the training programs that you enter into are many times are individuals talking to you and telling you what you must remember. They never challenge you to think critically. They never challenge you to use cognitive ability to actually solve difficult problems. And today, what we hope to present to you is the idea of how you can train individuals to think holistically about the acquisition function, think critically about difficult problems, and develop solutions in an environment where they don't have all the information, very much like you would in a real acquisition. However, in this environment, there's limited risk. So now I want to talk a little bit about some of the tactical aspects of what you're about to witness. What we have done is very much like a Harvard business case study. We've created two case studies focused specifically on debriefings, and we've put together an industry team and a government team. The industry team is made up of small businesses around the Beltway, and they have a case study that they're using to prepare for the debriefing. The government team is a team from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and an acquisition team from the Internal Revenue Service, and they have prepared to enter into an actual mock debriefing. You are going to get an opportunity to watch them enter into that debriefing and holistically manage all aspects of that debriefing without the downside of a real debriefing. We believe this is the best way to train the acquisition workforce in multiple functions throughout the acquisition lifecycle, and we're going to pilot it here within the function of debriefing. Now, a couple things I want you to remember very tactically about debriefings as you go through this. Debriefings are a positive thing. Debriefings decrease the likelihood of protest. If you do a good debriefing, and you explain to an industry partner why they didn't win, you will increase the quality of proposals from that industry partner in the future. That will enhance competition. Doing a good job with debriefings will improve your ability to meet your agency's mission and provide best value to the taxpayer. Not to mention the fact that listening to your industry partners when you go through the debriefing process will help you understand more about the challenges they face when they do business with the federal government. It will help you understand more about the time and expense associated with putting together a federal proposal. And hopefully it will give you some insight so the next time you go through the acquisition process, you will be able to plan accordingly to lower those costs and lower that time and get higher quality proposals. Now, before I hand it off to Thomas, who's going to walk through some training for you before we go into these debriefings. I want to mention one more thing. These are some things that have helped me throughout my career, specific to debriefings. When you're preparing for a debriefing, don't wing it. Practice. Have a strategy. Come up with a plan. When you are going through a debriefing that is based on a best value determination, explain the best value decision. Don't just tell the contractor that you lost because you weren't the best value. That is of no help to them. And don't rest your laurels on the fact that the debriefing that you gave was FAR compliant. FAR compliance is important, and I want everybody to ensure they do FAR compliant debriefings. But be a mentor to the industry partner. Be a coach to the industry partner and give them information that will be useful for them in the future as they compete for federal contracting opportunities. These are things that's going to make your job easier, and it's going to make the industrial base that supports you much better, much more dynamic. The single most important thing for acquisition professionals in any phase of the acquisition lifecycle and anything that you're doing is communication. Whether you're dealing with a customer or whether you're dealing with an industry partner, it is very important that you have developed your communication skills. Part of that is communicating verbally with words, and part of that is listening. And we hope that this debriefing training will give you a glimpse into an environment where contracting professionals and industry professionals can actually learn from one another. I thank you very much for tuning into this. I'm done for today, and I want to introduce you to Thomas Olin. Thomas Olin is the Director of Policy at the Department of the Treasury. Thomas Olin has worked in industry and in government, on acquisition teams in industry and in government, and he's developed a little bit of a training to help remind you of some important points to remember when you're preparing for a debriefing. He's also going to introduce and provide a little bit of information about the case studies. Thank you very much again for your time, and I hope you enjoy what we believe is the future of developing the acquisition workforce, both in industry and government. Thomas?
All right. Thank you, Jose. The goals for this training session will be, one will be refreshed on information, concepts, and principles associated with debriefings. You will be able to recognize oral debriefings as a critical and useful tool for improving vendor-industry relationships. You will also be able to view oral debriefings as a positive opportunity for providing information to the vendor on ways to improve, as well as learn about how the government can improve future acquisitions. The intent of debriefing is to provide information to offerors, whether successful or unsuccessful, so they will gain knowledge that will assist them in improving their chances of success for future source selections. Debriefings may be performed orally, in writing, or in any other method acceptable to the government contracting officer. There is no specific requirement to hold face-to-face or oral debriefings. Nonetheless, as the contracting officer responsible for making the decision as to the location and method, the needs of the offerer should be considered when setting up a debriefing. There are two types of debriefing. There is the pre-award debriefing, which is held for those excluded from competitive range or otherwise excluded from competition prior to award. There is also the post-award debriefing, which is held after award to either the unsuccessful or successful offers. Some key points to remember here are: if a pre-award debriefing is held, then do not provide a post-award debriefing. Always ensure that all parties are clearly aware of the conclusion of the debriefing, because the conclusion of the debriefing establishes the protest timelines. Also, always solicit offers attendees list and inclusive of their titles, as the number of attendees and titles may aid in the development of the agenda and indicate the tone of debriefing. Lastly, always document the briefing and include an official summary of the debriefing in the contract file. Here are some pre-award debriefing do's and don'ts. Do discuss an agency's evaluation of significant elements in offeror's proposals. Do discuss a summary of the rationale for eliminating the offer from the competition. Do not discuss number of offerors, content of other proposals, ranking of other proposals, nor don't provide a point-by-point comparison with other offerors. Some post-award debriefing do's and don'ts are: do discuss the offer's evaluated significant weaknesses or deficiencies. Do discuss overall ranking of all offers, and importantly, the rationale for the award summary. Do not discuss a point-by-point comparison of the debrief offer's proposal with those of other offers. Do not divulge privileged commercial or financial information or trade secrets. For further information regarding pre-award and post-award, go to FAR 15.505 and FAR 15.506. In terms of best practices for the government, always prepare and make a detailed agenda. This is important because being unprepared is the surest way to lose credibility and the confidence of the offer. If time allows, one good way, as we will see here, is to conduct a mock debriefing, which enables you to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your team and develop a sound strategic agenda. Altogether, when preparing for a debriefing, try to think like the vendor and contractor, thereby be able to anticipate questions and anticipate and address their strategy on how they're going to present. Other best practices are reviewing all source selection documents and knowing your team and their roles. Knowing your team and their roles is important, as it is critical they understand the debriefing process, their roles and responsibilities during the debriefing, as well as the agenda for the debriefing. It's very important. Otherwise, as we clearly have understood and seen in our previous experience, a disorganized and unprepared team can jeopardize the entire debriefing and thereby source selection process. Lastly, anticipate questions and prepare for answers, whether provided by the offer or developed by the team. Benefits to the government is that debriefings deter protests. This is because they provide a clear understanding to the vendor of the agency's evaluation process and the basis for the source selection decision. It also instills confidence in the contracting process by affirming that offerors were treated fairly. Another benefit is that it fosters a relationship of trust between the government and vendor. This is beneficial because unsuccessful offerors are now able to understand what the government's award determination process was, and that they will be able to willing to accept any negative findings in the debriefing if they perceive that the agency has acted with fairness, consistency, and objectivity, and in accordance with the evaluation criteria described in the solicitation. Other benefits are that it promotes future competition, improves the quality of future offers, and improves the quality of future solicitation. Lastly, it demonstrates mutual respect and concern. Here, by holding a briefing, you recognize the time and effort that a vendor has expended towards providing a response to your solicitation. Benefits to vendor and industry is that it reduces costs to obtain information, it enhances the quality of future proposals, and improves their vendor decision-making capabilities because now you've reduced misunderstandings and a gap of knowledge. It also benefits vendor and industry because it provides an opportunity to provide feedback on the government's procurement process, as well as provides the ability to amplify information, ask questions, and understand the customer. Some keys to successful debriefing are: findings are supported by specific reference to solicitation, offer page, paragraph number, and where the strengths, weaknesses, deficiencies, risks, and clarifications occur. This is important regardless of the complexity or the dollar value of the solicitation. Other keys to success are ensuring key points during the briefing are captured and documented. Also, tone, syntax, and technique are also very important, which will be seen in the mock debriefings shortly. Some key points or helpful hints for tone, syntax, and technique are maintaining a positive delivery by avoiding the extensive use of will not and cannot, balancing controlling the meeting with dialogue and interchange, listening carefully to the offerer's question and verifying that you have answered them, watching body language and maintain good eye contact, and using a professional tone and refraining from being condescending, abrupt, or defensive. Lastly, focus on open and positive communication. Essentially, keep in mind it's okay to disagree or not. You're here to be discussing the solicitation and the process. You're not here to debate, you're here to relate. Convey confidence in the award process. This is key as the entire solicitation process influences the debriefing process. Provide specific and honest feedback within regulations, but also avoid addressing hypothetical questions such as, if we had proposed this, how would you have rated it? Lastly, establish the debriefing ground rules up front. For example, make sure it's clear up front that the debriefing is not a forum to debate. Again, you're there to relate and exchange information, not to debate. Before we close, I just want to also give a highlight about the difference between debriefing versus explanations, because this may come up from time to time. Debriefing is associated with FAR 15 source selection procedures. It provides detailed information on the debrief offer's proposal and the selection process. An explanation is associated with FAR subpart 8.4 and is very brief and short and does not include lengthy discussion of strengths, weaknesses, deficiencies, ratings, or rankings of offers. This brings a conclusion to my part of the overview. However, let's now move on to the mock debriefings. Please note that the actions, words, emotions, and opinions expressed by the individuals participating in these role-play mock debriefing sessions are completely fictional and not representative or reflective of those involved. These role-play mock debriefing sessions are for training purposes only. In the beginning, each participant will be providing an introduction and overview of the case. At the conclusion, there will be a time for the participants to provide feedback as well as to answer questions. The first scenario, we have that Treasury awarded a contract for technical services in support of its SharePoint site. Gray Space Corporation, one of 3 offers who responded to the request for proposal, has requested a debriefing. GSC believes the government may have erred in its evaluation process and is confident it answered all the discussion questions in their final proposal revision. The government used the trade-off process in accordance with FAR 15101-1. For scenario 2, we will see that Treasury awarded a contract for engineering and technical services. Bel Air Company, one of 3 offers who responded to the request for proposal, has requested a debriefing. Bel Air wants to understand why the government did not follow the RFP and do a true best value award to them. That last portion is a direct quote from a call between Bel Air and the CO made during the setup of the debriefing. Again, the government used the trade-off process in accordance with FAR 15101-1. Thank you.